So the dream never dies. It just changes sometimes. What humans really want is to be loved. The money's not going to bring people to you. The people that money brings to you don't love you anyway. They love your money. I don't create my own provision. The Lord does. Because I came into this world with nothing, and I will leave this world with nothing. You have dreams now because of where you're at in life. I have dreams now because of where I'm at in life.
Perfect. Welcome to the Dreaming to Compete podcast, Landon.
Thanks, man.
It's great to have you here.
No, thanks for having me.
And you are a business owner, entrepreneur. You just built the Total House, which in a little bit we're going to talk more about what the Total House is. But it's basically an Airbnb property, and you have other different Airbnb properties and different businesses, which I would like to talk more about because I know it was a tough journey of building Total House, and you learn a lot from that journey and just your journey of your life in general, which I would like to talk about and learn more from.
Sure. So I guess I'll start with kind of my journey, how I got here. So how far back in my journey do you want me to go?
Or let's start with, what is your dream?
My dream now is to bring as many people to Christ as I can. But that wasn't always my dream. My dream initially was to make money. My dream initially was to build a platform of influence for myself and not others.
Why?
Because that's what society had trained me to think. That in order to be a successful business owner, a successful entrepreneur, that you have to be about yourself, about inflating yourself, about garnering resources for yourself. And so that's what I did.
So you always wanted to be an entrepreneur?
No. So I became an entrepreneur because I felt like I never fit in the workforce. I was never able to find a job where I felt like I truly fit in. And my initial goal was to create a job for myself that I enjoyed. And then when I found out that I was good at doing that, then I became very self-serving in my goal. My goal, my dream was to create notoriety for myself. My dream, my goal was to create money and wealth for myself.
That was your vision of what success meant?
Yep. That was my vision of success. That was the trappings of success.
Money,
wealth, power, influence. That was the dream. That was the goal.
Everything that you can name.
Everything that you can name. Cars, houses, designer clothes.
Now society is what normally is seen as success.
What TikTok shows you, being down in Miami.
Having a lot of likes.
Having a lot of likes, having a lot of comments, having a lot of followers. We didn't have TikTok at the time. It was just Snapchat. The Snapchat stories, the behind the scenes on Facebook, the flying in the private jet. So taking my morning meeting at 32,000 feet. It was that.
Now, what's your definition of success?
Now my definition of success is providing for others. Whether that be a friend, whether that be a neighbor, whether that be an employee, whether that be my wife, whether that be my kids, whether that be my church, whether that be somebody at the local food pantry or a kid on the corner who has struggled his whole life and needs a job.
Providing what?
So there are a lot of different things that one can provide. And initially as my dream began to kind of transform, the first thing I did was give away money because that's what I had. And that's what I thought that's the only thing I thought I could provide. But providing your time to people, providing your heart to people
is the most valuable thing in life.
It is. And providing your heart and your mind to people. When people when you realize how much pain people are in from just all kind of things, when you sit with them and listen, not to interject what you want to say, not to override the conversation, but authentically to listen to somebody and hear them out, give them that ear, that shoulder to cry on. It's providing a lot of those things. So yes, of course, I still donate. I still tithe to my church. I still give money to friends and family and things like that. But giving money now has become almost like the last kind of tier of my giving. I try to give more of my time, my mentorship, my leadership, my thoughts, my heart, my ear, things like that.
Because as well, you can give a fish or you can teach someone how to fish.
Correct. I can give somebody money and it might pay your rent this month. But if you don't have the proper financial habits to not be in that situation again, then you're going to be right back where you are. Like your point, I can give you the fish or I can teach you to fish. So that's my dream now, is giving in that way. So I spend a lot of time at a lot of different ministries, particularly men's ministries, because I find that men, as I've gone through my entrepreneurial journey, as I've ventured into different aspects of business ownership, as I've spent time in the military for the past decade, I find that men tend to suffer in silence, and that men have this crushing burden that society tells them they have to carry, where they have to provide for everybody all the time, that nobody's really there for them, and
they have to be strong.
They have to be strong.
Like a rock. No one
can't cry, no emotions. And while there's a time and place for that, that is a very lonely weight to carry. So I spend a lot of time at men's ministries and leadership ministries and different business ministries put on by different nonprofits, different churches, and different organizations. But I provide now by providing those things to these men, the mentorship, the ear to listen, the advice, having been divorced and now remarried, being able to give advice on those topics from a godly perspective, being able to provide counsel to individuals when they need it. And at times, yes, still providing money for certain aspects, but my main provision now is I guess you could say more of like a teacher, a mentor, and a bit of a counselor.
Why are you part of so many ministers and churches?
So part of that is because of the Turtle House. Part of that is because I look to fill my time now much more constructively than I used to. And part of it is because, a large part of it is because I enjoy doing it. So in building the Turtle House, as my dream was transforming from just making money, from just amassing wealth, to one of generosity and one of giving, that transformation happened within and through everything that is the Turtle House. Now on the other side.
So you started building the Turtle House like 3 years ago?
Yeah, 3 years ago I started building it.
So 5 years ago, your dream was wealth and power and all of that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it was a malicious dream. It was more so one born out of self-preservation. Mm-hmm. And it was one more so born out of lack, right? And not liking who I was, where I came from, all the normal things. And so my definition of success became how far I could run from where and what I was before, to prove to people that I was worthy, to prove to society that I was good enough. So that was my dream, is to become something that the world would accept. And they never did. But in doing that, part of the dream was, like you said, amassing those resources, the career progression, climbing the corporate ladder. And then when I started building the Turtle House, it was just a regular Airbnb property because I had the money to do it. I had the connections to do it.
Why did you start building the Turtle House?
To make more money, to garner influence in the local county, to build connections with local government officials. Because when you come in, when you build a project or you bring a business that's worth a lot of money and makes a lot of money, it garners attention because people like donations, people like being associated with it because it's free advertising, marketing, all of the things.
So why specifically the total house? Because it's a really unique property. Can you explain a little bit?
Yeah.
What the turtle house is?
So the turtle house is, the official name is, it is a geodesic dome home, also known as a geodome. That's the shorthand. But the actual engineering term for it is a geodesic dome home.
Which looks like an igloo.
And it looks like an igloo, and my son named it the turtle house because it looks like a turtle shell, and it happens to be an LJ. So it's the LJ turtle house. The reason I chose that is
LJ, Georgia.
In LJ, Georgia, yeah. And so I chose the mountains, the North Georgia mountains, because I spent a lot of time up there with the Army. I went to Ranger School over in Camp Frank Du Merrill over in Dahlonega. I went to the University of North Georgia, which is up there in the mountains. So I'm familiar with the mountains up there, and it's a great place for short-term rental properties. They make a lot of money up there, especially during the fall. You can turn thousands and thousands of dollars a month, no problem. The reason I chose a dome home is because tiny homes are really popular with millennials. Really popular with millennials. Being off-grid, being green, and being minimalist are also aspects that are popular with the millennial crowd. And tiny homes are much less expensive to build. This one cost me almost $250,000 to build, as opposed to $600,000 to build a house or a cabin, or, take your pick. So it was a lot less, it was a lot more inexpensive to build. The market research showed that it is within kind of trend and future projections of what's going to be liked, and the area is beautiful and it fits very well with the nature aspect. So that's why I chose to build that specific structure and why I chose that specific area.
And you started building Turtle House with a specific purpose of just making money.
Yeah. So, within that purpose, obviously I wanted to provide a good experience to the customer. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing.
The angle of you might provide a good experience.
I make money. It was purely business. It was, I provide a product or service or experience to the customer, and they pay me for it. And I do the best I can at that product, service, or experience, and I make more money. I get more 5-star reviews on Google, Airbnb, Vrbo, and I make more money.
How did the purpose change in the process?
So the purpose changed when the Lord showed me that my willpower and my grit wasn't enough anymore. That's when it changed.
How did it show you that?
So the great thing about having resiliency, grit, determination, tenacity, perseverance, endurance, all the great buzzwords about being an entrepreneur, is that they help you be an entrepreneur. The unfortunate side of having all of those descriptive adjectives as a person of faith is that you tend to resist the Lord's teachings. And so as I was coming to faith during this time, I was going through a lot of internal change in the beginning of my faith journey as a Christian. So that's why the change started, is my heart was changing. And because I am very tenacious and strong-willed.
How is it changing?
It changes. So Scripture says you have to have a renewed mind, right? And I'm paraphrasing that particular area of Scripture, but your mind is transformed and your heart is transformed, and it's transformed by the shedding of various aspects of yourself that don't serve the Lord's purpose, right? So one of mine was ego. One of mine was vanity. One of mine was arrogance. One of mine was anger. One of mine was rage. And shedding those parts of you that no longer serve you having an ego really does nobody any good. It makes me feel good about myself, but it makes me come across to people as an arrogant guy.
Mm-hmm.
Me having an ego doesn't serve me as a husband because I always think I'm correct and I'm never open to hearing my wife's responses, which leads to issues in a marriage. So that's how my heart was changing, is the Lord was convicting me in ways telling me that I needed to change. And you can either create a law in your mind against it and say, no, that's not true, I'm not going to do it. Or you can lean into his correction, which hurts because you're being corrected by your father. And that's not, whether it's your human dad or your spiritual dad, being corrected by your father is never
because telling you that you're wrong.
Yeah, he's telling you you're wrong and that you need to change. And looking in the mirror and saying, admitting to yourself, I am arrogant. And then when you admit to yourself you're arrogant, realizing that your arrogance has possibly hurt a lot of people.
And the way to change that
is
by humility. Humility.
Correct. And so the Turtle House was part of that journey for me. God was convicting me and I was changing as a person. And as I kept trying to do things in my own willpower by building the Turtle House, he would stop the project. Oh, just all kinds of weird ways, man. Like, it would rain for like 3 weeks in a row, and he would force me to be patient. I would deal with contractors that didn't do things correctly, and he would force me to give grace. He would force me to have humility.
Mm-hmm.
He would, just do a lot of things like that, and it was forcing me to realize that I didn't have control of the situation, and that the vision he gave me would come to fruition. The dream would come to fruition, but it's not on my time. It's on his time, because it's not my dream, it's his dream, because I'm a part of him now. So his dream is mine, and what is in me is now him.
By that time, you had already changed the dream.
Yep, so that was him changing that dream in me, because he's downloading into me what I should be doing.
So what did the purpose become?
The purpose became giving. The purpose became, so for example, when we have guests that stay at the Turtle House, yes, it still runs as a business, but the money we make from it doesn't just go to me. It goes to a lot of different causes. When the way that I interact with customers is far different than I ever would have before. The way I interact with vendors is far different than I ever would have before. The way I interact with the local community, far different than I ever would have before.
Because you are doing it from a place of serving.
Correct. So the dream now is the Lord's dream, which is to have servant-based leaders, particularly among men. So,
and it's just like not just in that business, but in anything that we do in life. Like, it's how can we do this to serve, to help others, not just doing it but for myself.
Yep.
With being selfish. Just, this is for me. I want to make this amount of money, or I want to get this house so I can live more comfortable. But like, so I can give a better place for my family, for the people that I love.
Yeah.
For others.
Correct. So that's my dream now. So I've always had a dream, but it's just changed as I've changed and as my purpose has changed. So the dream never dies. It just changes sometimes.
And it took you 3 years to build that house. And wasn't just that easy. And you did it all by yourself, which I am surprised. I am surprised and amazed, because all of that thing, yes, you had some contractors to do specific things, but you stayed there during nights.
Yeah.
And you built it all by yourself without knowing anything at the beginning of it.
Correct. So I did.
How did the vision started?
So I'll tell you.
Did you, at the beginning, do you want it at all like that?
No.
Did you have that vision?
So I was actually in the car with my father-in-law. And at the time, I was doing really, really well financially with all these different investments that I had made on the stock market, bond trading, option trading, futures trading. I had done really, really well financially. And the honest truth is I was bored. And I was looking to expand my investment portfolio for the sake of expansion, for the sake of I've gotten really good at long-term equity picking. I've gotten really good at, interim trading of options and futures here and there and making $30,000 in a week on an options trade.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it got to the point where, plus I was still working and I was making six figures while working. And it got to the point where I had money and I was like, what else can I do? Because money sitting around doesn't do you any good. So I was like, I'll get into real estate. Every millionaire has real estate. Every big time whoever has real estate as a backbone of their portfolio because it's time and tested and true.
Just buy a house, rent it, while its value gets bigger.
Yeah. So there's ins and outs to single family, multifamily, short-term, long-term real estate. There are good situations to do it. There are bad situations to do it. I don't want to oversimplify it because there are a lot of ways that getting into like single family home can really be a bad decision. And there are a lot of ways where it can be really beneficial. But that's what I was looking to do. And I was actually driving down the road with my father-in-law and my wife suggested to me, she's like, why don't you buy some land? And I don't know why, but it was like
it clicked.
It clicked. It was like a crystallizing moment. Like I felt it in my gut. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So I found a realtor after doing some research and I bought some land. And then the Airbnb dream was born. And
so you just bought a land without thinking that you were going to make an Airbnb.
Yeah. So it really wasn't like it was expensive. I paid $31,000 for 2 acres, which at the time it didn't really faze me. And I bought it and I knew I was going to do something with it. At the time, I wasn't really sure what. In the process, so it's not like I bought it and then figured it out. As I was going through the buying process, I figured out what I wanted to do because I knew that I had to know what I wanted prior to closing on the property.
Of course.
Yeah. So through the buying process is where I kind of solidified what I was going to do.
Okay.
So we closed on the property. I knew I was going to make an Airbnb. I didn't know what type. And then as I was doing, deeper Airbnb research, deeper market research, that I landed on the tiny home in and around national forests kind of model, because there are a couple different models in the short-term rental world. One of them is the one that I use and I like is everyone goes to national forests around the United States every year.
Yeah.
There's tens upon tens upon tens of millions of visitors every year. You don't have to market yourself really. If you have a place outside of like the Smoky Mountains, you don't really have to market yourself. People are going to go to the Smoky Mountains and they're going to need a place to stay. So here in Georgia, we have some national forest and we have some, national rivers and things like that. And so that was kind of my strategy. And that's how I got there. And then as I started building it was the process where I started going back to church for the first time. Not for me, it was for my wife that I went back. And that's how the dream began changing to what it is now.
Wow, and that's crazy. I thought like you were like close to God and to church, like even way before you started building the house.
Before I started building the turtle house, I lived as secular and hedonistic a life as you can possibly imagine prior to being married. I did all the things that you would imagine a single guy with money would do. I got entangled in all the things you would imagine a single guy with money would do. And that's just how I lived my life. Sometimes it worked out well. A lot of times it didn't. But I was very good at working. I was very good at making money because I figured out how to do it for myself in a way that I enjoyed. And that's all that I was. All I was was money, work, and influence. That's it. Once you peeled back the mask of Landon, once you peeled back the mask of that like super thin dream, there was nothing. It was a hollow, empty person.
Could that person had overcome all the challenges that you had during the process of building the house?
I don't know. That person,
Probably with the grit that you had.
that person had a lot of drive, but a lot of drive due to pain. And that person tried to overcome the challenges of the turtle house, and that person failed. And the only reason that person was allowed to finish the project is because that person agreed to change. And as that person changed and that person died and a new person was born, then I was allowed to continue.
Interesting. Because any journey is going to change who you are. And the end goal is not what you're looking for. It's the journey, whatever it teaches you. And it's not about achieving that end goal, but growing through the journey.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think that that's for athletes, entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, anybody that competes at some sort of level. There's always a journey, and there's always lessons along the way that have to be learned. There's lessons that are learned that you probably could have avoided learning, like hard lessons. But I don't think that a lot of people give enough credence to the process because they're so focused on the end goal. And when you're that focused on the end goal, you miss a lot of education along the way. And a lot of people who compete at various things in various arenas at various levels, that missed education causes them to have to repeat certain things.
What are some specific lessons that you learned during the process? And tell me the moment that touched you, that lesson.
The biggest lesson I learned was work-life balance was a big lesson I had to learn. Not allowing my things, not allowing my money to control me. Those were big lessons I had to learn for me personally.
Why?
Because it was making me miserable and I didn't know it at the time. When you're married, and especially when you have kids, right, it's difficult to balance being a business owner or an executive or someone who has a lot of demands on their time. I had to learn to prioritize for the sake of my family, for the sake of my health, for the sake of my marriage, and for the sake of running a business.
Was there a specific event or time during the journey?
There were a
you
lot.
would say yes,
There wasn't one specific one. There were a lot. It was, me, like you said, I built it myself. And that was only by God's power that I managed to somehow pull off that miracle. But that meant that I was gone a lot. And that's hard on a marriage. That's hard on a relationship with your kids. So I had to learn balance. I had to learn patience. I had to learn gratitude. I had to learn humility. And that happened to me probably thousands of times through that process, that I would begin to do those things and then I would pull away from them and I'd go back to how I used to be. And it wasn't until I decided to not go back to how I used to be that it stopped being an issue for me.
So for someone that is like me, that is always thinking of goals, working hard. Hey, I have this goal, I'm gonna achieve it, work hard. But I don't give myself time to rest, to recover, to spend time with my family. I'm too focused on my goals, on what I'm working on. How can I change that?
So it's simple, but it's difficult. It's simple because it's simple, and it's difficult because humans don't like doing it. I did the same thing. I had a list, man, of goals that I was going to accomplish by the year, like 5 years out. And when I tell you I would hit every single one, bam, 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 this money by this age, this. And that becomes the trapping of success because it takes you away from your joy. So the way out of it is realizing that it's not important. It's important that we have to live in this world, so we have to have money, right? We have to have a place to shelter to live in. But what we want, what humans really want, is to be loved. What humans really want is a girlfriend that's by their side. What humans really want is a family to have Christmas with. What humans really want is camaraderie, community, and joy. Nobody actually wants, like really in their soul, wants to do data analytics for the rest of their life. Mm-hmm. Nobody in their soul actually wants to be a salesperson for CarMax for the rest of their life. Nobody actually wants to do those things. They do those things because they have to earn a living. So it's simple.
So they can earn a living to
survive.
And to be loved, like to have someone around, like have the people around.
But the money's not going to bring people to you. The people that money brings to you don't love you anyway. They love your money. Mm-hmm. Speaking from someone that had it. Women don't. If a woman comes around just because you have money, as soon as you don't have money, she's not there anymore.
She's out. She's out.
All right, she's gone. She enjoys the Porsche. She enjoys the plane rides. She enjoys the dresses that you buy her. She enjoys the dinners that you take her to.
But then it's not only her, like it's not just her fault because like, I guess she's also missing love.
Correct, because she's empty, just like you are. Not you, but for the example. Mm-hmm. So the simplicity of it is realizing that money and wealth and houses and quote unquote security is not the most important thing in life. If it was the most important thing in life, it would make people happy, but it doesn't. Once you reach stability, and if stability for you is $50,000 a year, if stability is like real stability, not I need $200,000 a year and I'll feel good about myself. That's not stability. That's ego and fear. Stability as in my house is paid, my mortgage is covered every month. I have food in my fridge. My kids have clothes, right? My wife and I can afford to go on a date once or twice a month and not have to really worry too much. That's stability. Once you reach stability, happiness doesn't really increase much with income.
How can you reach that stability?
Learning to be content. Learning to say, and truly mean it in your heart, I have enough. Why does a billionaire have to keep earning billions? They don't have to. Mm-hmm. But their personality is also not going to allow them to change. So what's the difference between the millionaire who decides to become philanthropic and the millionaire who decides to keep making money?
And as a person that just graduated and let's say I'm not making enough money to
So while you're young, work, yes. But there's a difference between rest and being idle. Right? Idle is where you sit around in your laziness, and Scripture condemns laziness. Rest is where you allow your mind and your soul to rest from the worry.
Right? Is there specific ways there?
I can only recommend the ways that I believe. And the way that I believe is through Jesus. is through the reading of scripture, through prayer, and through the learning of the mystery that is God to understand how to rest in him. I can't recommend ways to rest that the world or culture will say. So from my perspective, that's how I recommend to rest. For me, that looks like understanding that I don't create my own provision, the Lord does. Because I came into this world with nothing, and I will leave this world with nothing. Mm-hmm. So nothing on this planet ever has or ever will belong to me. I might be a steward of certain resources while I'm here, but if I am truly his child, and a human father has the ability to give good gifts, how much better are the gifts that the eternal Father can give? So knowing that is how I find rest. But resting, finding a way to rest from the worry and from the insecurity is the key. And not being idle, meaning continue to work.
Not trying to carry all the weight of your worries on
yourself, correct.
Mm-hmm. But knowing that like it's all going to be good.
You'll get there. Give it time. No product was built. Rome wasn't built in a night. Mm-hmm. So give yourself time. Keep your eye on the goal. Don't forget the Lord. Spread his word whenever you have the opportunity. Engage with people in the way that he would engage with people, and trust the process. And the dream will come. When the dream changes, allow it to change. Be okay with it changing, and then go after a new dream. Don't forget the people that helped you, because you never got anywhere on your own.
How do you know if to change the dream?
Or it'll change naturally.
Because maybe like saying, oh, if I change this dream, I'm saying that I failed.
Why'd you fail?
I didn't make it.
Why'd you fail? When you get older, you're going to have a wife and kids. Your dream will naturally change. Mm-hmm. When you get older and you have certain jobs, your dreams will naturally change. When you get older and your parents get older, your dreams will naturally change. It's not a failure. And I know exactly what you're talking about. 100% I empathize because I've been there. You have dreams now because of where you're at in life. I have dreams now because of where I'm at in life. I had a dream when I first joined the Army to go be a super cool guy, special forces, special operations type soldier. I don't have that dream anymore now at 33 with a wife and 2 children, because I like being home with my kids. I like being home with my wife. I don't want to have to go through another divorce. I don't want to lose my kids, by going to chase some thing in the Army. So it's not that you failed. It's just that it changes, mm-hmm. and that's okay.
It evolves.
It evolves. Yeah. It evolves as you evolve.
Okay. So going back, I forgot where we were. We're like in the place where I am now. Mm-hmm. How can I make like a living? Like where?
So you have to make
to a place. Yeah, getting to a place that at least I am content.
So you have to decide what contentment looks like for you. Are you going to be content at 50 grand? Are you going to be content at 100 grand? Obviously you don't want to be in poverty. So, scripture doesn't glorify poverty either. But it does tell us to watch out for the temptations of wealth. So finding your contentment wherever it's going to be is key. So and only you can answer that one.
The first step would be to get clarity on that.
Mm-hmm. Get clarity on where you want to be, what type of life you actually want to lead. Because if you keep going on working, the system...
But then how can you balance on like just working so I can get to that place of content and that like miss the love part?
Because you have to decide what's important for you. You can chase wealth, and the culture and the system will allow you to do it for your entire life. But I promise you, no one on their deathbed ever said, man, I wish I'd worked another hour. A lot of times they say things like, I wish I'd spent more time with my wife. I wish I'd spent more time with my kids. Because like 90% of the stuff that we worry about will never come to pass. Mm-hmm. So wherever your heart is where you find treasure. And that treasure might not be good treasure. Wherever your heart is where you will reap. So if your heart is focused on fear, if your heart is focused on scarcity, that's where you're going to be. That's where your mind is going to be. That's where your actions are going to be. And if you are, and again, preaching from someone that did it, the fear of lack drives you insanely to work. So I would recommend...
Like lack of money.
Yeah, lack of money. So it depends on what's important to you. And going back to the turtle house, that change in the heart, that's why the change in the heart is so painful. Because it's giving up ultimate control. It's showing to yourself that money, while it has utility, is ultimately not that important, because money comes and money goes. A good wife, you might not find another one. Happy kids, what happens when they turn 18 and never come to visit you anymore? You know?
You can't go back in time.
You can't go back. You can't go back. The damage is done. You can try to fix it, and there have been fathers and mothers that have successfully fixed it, but it's going to require years of therapy together and all the things. So it's better to just do it right the first time, I think.
So now that you just built the house, finished,
Yep.
it's now getting its people,
Yes.
customers, it's new customers.
Yes. So we are still obviously building up the customer base. So yes, the customers will come over time. I'm not terribly worried. With any product, there's a slow build to the market to kind of find where you're going to be. There's a lot of beta testing involved as far as, you know, who you thought your customer was going to be, maybe who they really are, what type of marketing you thought you were going to do, as opposed to which type of marketing really turns out to be the most effective. So that will build over time.
And I guess those are some things of like goals that you're learning goals.
Yeah.
Because there's this great book that just came out, Big Goals, that at the beginning you need learning goals. So then you can have performance goals.
Yeah, so I think all goals should be flexible. I think a lot of times when we set super rigid goals, it can cause us a lot of undue stress for various reasons. But to take your words, those are the learning goals we have right now, which we will improve upon year after year. Moving forward with the Turtle House, we are going to integrate very heavily with faith-based communities, churches, therapists, and start taking believers and non-believers who are navigating different areas of mental health to give them a place of respite. And moving forward, we look to partner with as many people as we can to help them compete against life, to make their lives as good as we possibly can, to help them in any way that we possibly can.
I love that. And I really like the place, and I like the vision behind it. Congratulations. And like just knowing like the whole journey, I really like it.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
So now to finish this great conversation, what is your definition of a dream?
My definition of a dream is something that drives you forward, something that gets you out of bed in the morning, something that gives you the wind in your sails to keep going in the game of life that oftentimes can be really painful. For me, that's my definition of a dream.
I love it. What's the definition of competition?
So very briefly, and I know you and I have kind of discussed this before, my definition of competition has changed. I don't know if I have a definition of competition, but I will say that my definition previously used to be, like your head-to-head competition with someone else. But I think now healthy competition that helps you grow as a person and helps you grow as a team and helps you grow as partners rather than...
I know that your current definition is more aligned with the Latin word, competere.
Yes.
To strive together.
To strive together is more my definition now than competing to overcome.
So now partnering, helping each other to overcome and achieve things. Yeah. To serve others.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Landon. This was a great conversation, and I wish you the best in your endeavors and building these customers and serve people through the Total House.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.